Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Rosie, and today we've got just your traditional knitting podcast. It's been a while since I did my last one of these, and so there's quite a lot to get through, but yeah, sit down, get your knitting, get your tea. This is actually water because I need to stay hydrated and I can't have caffeine. Let's take a look at what I've made. I'm not going to go in chronological order for these because that would take too much mental effort, and I'm working on everything simultaneously anyway most of the time. I spoke about these, I think, in my last podcast. Either I was just about to cast them on or I'd cast them on already. These were made with Rowan felted tweed, and I love them. Minor issue was that I wore them a lot very quickly initially, and I got a hole in them. I don't know whether this is the yarn or whether I did something. You can kind of see on the bottom here, this is worn quite a lot. I think I wore them for like 3 days straight. It's I was obsessed, but I have not since gotten around to darning them, and so they now sit back in my whip drawer. My mum was very kind as to give me a darning mushroom to use. However, I've never darned anything before and I find it intimidating, but I really enjoy knitting socks, so I really ought to do it. And I really like these, but also it's summer now, these are wool. I'm not going to wear them as much, so they might not get fixed until the winter, but I am very pleased with how they came out. I used this pattern, I'll put it on screen somewhere because I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's a vanilla sock toe-up pattern. These were my second pair of toe-up socks because I really enjoyed making a pair for my mum, and those were my first ever toe-up pair, and I just really enjoy the process of being able to actually measure the foot a bit more exactly, and then go as far as I wanted on the leg without worrying about using up yarn. I actually have a decent amount of this left. I did 2 at a time, so I was working from each of the 50-gram balls I have, and I have about 20 grams in total left, so I think I could do another pair that are slightly smaller or just shorter as well, so I might do that, might do them as a gift or something, but they're definitely, although this yarn does have nylon in, I think it's probably more suited to bed socks than wearing socks. I did wear them with DMs around London, so that's maybe on me slightly for not being too careful with my hand knitted socks. Then I have 2 finished objects. They're actually now in winter storage. I have put all of my jumpers and warm items away safely for the winter, hopefully out of the reach of moths, which are a new fear of mine. I don't know why until this year I've not been so terrified of them, but I think because I've got a much larger wool yarn stash, I'm now way more concerned about moths getting into the house. Like if I see a moth, I'm afraid it's on site, which I feel slightly bad about because I do think moths are really cool. I think insects in general are really cool, but not when they're anywhere near my yarn. I do have the wool, so I will talk about that. I have plenty of pictures of this, so I will put it on screen somewhere, and I am making a working on my whips video. It's just a lot of footage, so coming along slowly, so you can see more in that when it's up. This is the gauge swatch. I did show it in my last knitting podcast, and it was my Sophie x Alex hood, where I wanted to make the Sophie hood, but I didn't love the construction of it being straight up, but I did like the construction of the Alex hood. I just didn't like the stitch style, the ribbing, and so I bought both patterns and read both patterns and essentially followed the Sophie scarf up to a point and then attempted to do the hood shaping in the Alex scarf. It didn't work fantastically. I talked about it last time. I had to undo. It went in a pile of shame for a bit, and then I got it back out and more or less free-handed the increases and decreases based on what I read in the Alex hood. And I'm so happy with how it turned out. This yarn combination is so luxurious, so soft. I finished this hood just before heat wave, and then it's kind of been a little bit chilly occasionally. I've worn it once or twice, but it's not the weather for it anymore. But I'm so looking forward to the autumn winter when I can get it back out and be nice and warm and snuggly in it, because it's so nice. The yarn I used was, I still can't pronounce this correctly, Cedar Snuggly Cashmere Merino. It's, I think, a blend of acrylic, cashmere and merino. 57% wool, 33% acrylic and 10% cashmere. And it's enough cashmere to make it feel really luxurious. The merino makes it nice and warm. And then acrylic makes it a bit cheaper, although this wasn't the cheapest project, I will say, for a hood scarf. I can't remember how much I paid for all of the wool in total, but it was worth it. And part of the reason that it was more expensive overall was because I held it with mohair, although Drops mohair, Drops Kid Silk in, this is color 24, I can't remember what it's called, but these two colors together, I keep putting it down, I should put it over here, here we go. These two colors held together just at the beginning of this year. I was obsessed with this color. I am still obsessed with this color. I've actually got some whips in a similar one that I'll show you later. I'm so happy with how this hood came out. 10 out of 10 would recommend doing this kind of construction for the Sophie hood. I think I've made it out to be super difficult. I am not used to freehanding shaping of knitting, so I'm a little bit of a newbie at that kind of thing. But once I'd got the hang of it and using other hoods for reference to check that my increase and decreases were looking right, to check it looked like hoods that fit how I wanted it to, once I got that out of the way, it was super easy, and it did work up really quickly for actual total knitting time. If you discount the frogging and the redoing, I could have probably made it in a couple of days. It just took me a month and a bit because I had a falling out with it. Then another one that's in winter storage, but I do have loads of clips and I'll put them on screen, is my Mountain Lodge pullover. This one has quite a story to it. In 2022, I went into Tiger and discovered that they not only had yarn, but it was on a major discount. And I think it was about 50p for a 50 gram ball. And so I bought basically everything they had. I used some of it for a bag, and I used some of it for this pattern, the Mountain Lodge pullover. It's by Just the Worsted. Worsted? I still don't know how to say worsted. Worsted. It's by Just the Worsted, which is a great pun of a name. Anyway, I just fell in love with the style of the granny squares on it. I just thought it was really cool. And so I started making this jumper, and I got very far. I got as far as the whole body being done, bar the collar ribbing and the bottom ribbing. And then for some reason, my little brain decided it was no longer interested. I have ADHD. I'm now medicated for that. And trust me, I finish a lot more of my projects. But it went in a drawer, and I thought about it every now and again and thought, I should finish that. I'd like to finish that. I actually convinced myself that it was not my style or color anymore, but that maybe I'd finish it and give it to a friend. But then I challenged myself in Lent to not cast on any projects and instead try and finish my whips. And this was probably my favorite thing to come out of that. So first, the yarn, this was surprisingly really nice yarn for it being so cheap at Tiger, who doesn't even normally sell yarn, or they sometimes do, but it's usually acrylic. I thought this was acrylic until halfway through working with it recently and going, wait a second, this doesn't feel like acrylic, and looked at the label, and lo and behold, it is 100% wool. That is as much information I have on the kind of wool that it is, but it is for 6.5 millimeters, so worsted gauge, I would guess. So the pattern, I obviously worked on the majority of this pattern a long time ago now in my brain, and so I don't fully remember a lot of it, but what I do know is that I hadn't followed many garment crochet patterns before this, and I mean, it's a successful finished object, so clearly it's easy to read and clear, and the bits that I did read more recently and follow more recently, I did find really easy to follow and clear. I did make some modifications, but they were very minor. All I did was knit the neck ribbing. I had crocheted it. It looked awful. That's on me, not the pattern. I think I'd picked up too many stitches or something, but I was just more comfortable doing knitted ribbing, and I do like how that looks with the knitted ribbing and the crochet items. So I did a double folded ribbed collar, and then I also knitted the ribbing on the sleeves and at the bottom hem. And I'm just so happy with how this came out. I was very worried because it was already going to be too big for me, because I made it in a large size, and I definitely didn't do a gauge swatch. I definitely did not check that the yarn I was using was the correct size or any of that. All I know is that I was using the recommended needle size in the pattern and on the yarn label. So I was probably using the right weight of yarn for the pattern, but even then it's a bit hit and miss. It turned out to be a fantastic, oversized, very cozy, very warm jumper. It's 100% wool, it's crochet, so it's thick, worsted, so it's thick, it's a chunky finished object. It gives 80s ski mountain lodge vibes. It's immaculate. I can't wait to wear it in winter. Final finished object. I have finished a couple of other bits and bobs since my last podcast, but I will leave those for my whips video, and they're all little things, so I am not going to talk about them now. This was my first cast on post cast on ban, and I finished it in 2 weeks because I was majorly hyper focused on it. I'm making a series on my TikTok and Instagram if you want to go watch that. But this is my modified step-by-step sweater. I knew that I wanted to make a oversized jumper, basic jumper, which I could just lounge around the house in. Ages and ages ago, I bought this massive skein. I think I bought 2 of this massive skein of the Women's Institute Soft and Smooth Aran yarn in cream. I had 2 of these massive 400-gram skeins of yarn. This isn't all I've got left. I've got actually a fair amount left as well as this, because I had caked up smaller amounts, so I wasn't dealing with this mess. And I knew I wanted to make a jumper in that. And then for my birthday, I went yarn shopping in London. Again, I've got a video on my TikTok and Instagram if you want to see those. But I spent all my birthday money on yarn. And one of the things I bought, which had been on my wish list for a while, yarn wish list, was Rico Creative Make It Tweed. This is one that I've got left because I did actually buy some more because I thought I was going to run out, and then I think I would have just about made it with the amount that I had, but I really enjoyed this, so I'm definitely going to make something else with it. So as the name would suggest, you hold this with another yarn and it makes it look like a tweedy yarn. It also, the sort of, I don't know whether you'll be able to see, but the thinner strand of it, it's like a lace, if not lighter than that, on the thinnest strand is 2-ply white plied with then a continuous rainbow gradient, is probably the best word to describe it, and then little chunks in it of the different colors, and that makes up to a gorgeous finished fabric. Now the pattern, I had heard lots of good things about the step-by-step sweater. I knew I wanted to make one, but I also knew I wanted to modify the pattern. I wanted to be able to play around, make it my own. I essentially wanted to make a basic raglan and wanted the building blocks for that, but I wanted to play around with it. If you are a strict pattern follower, you might not get this, but I really enjoy and have always enjoyed since I learned to knit just doing something and seeing if it works out. And I am quite happy that I now have more skills in knitting and construction and things that I can do that and it work out successfully. There are a couple of things I do differently, but firstly, let's talk about what I did. Right off the bat, double folded collar and 2x1 ribbing. I wanted the ribbing to look different. I don't know whether I've just done a lot of 1x1 ribbing recently, but I wanted something just a bit different. So I went with 2x1 ribbing. I looked up a page of all the different types of ribbing you could do, and I scrolled through it and went, that one looks cool, I like that one. I could have knit up swatches and all of that, but that was the easier way to do it. And then the other thing I did was, I knew I wanted the sleeves particularly to be a bit deeper, more oversized on this. So I, for two reasons, moved where the raglan increases started. In the pattern, they start right at the same spot, and then you increase between that and outside of that. Whereas I've got 5 stitches between to begin with. Part of that was chunkier collar, but I also wanted to line up the raglans with my ribbing, which had I planned a bit further in advance, I could have done anyway, but I didn't. I was very much doing this as I went. Then the other thing I wanted to do was accentuate the raglan lines. And how I decided to do that was add 2 pearls either side of the central 2 knit stitches. In doing that, I should have changed to purling the make one left and right, I think, because I have been left with a little bit of a bumpy holy look on either side, but equally I really like it. I realized quite early on that it was that I probably should have been making my increases differently, but I also really liked how it was looking, so didn't want to change. I will put it on for you real quick. As you can see, very slouchy, oversized. I also did 2x1 rib on the cuffs and the bottom ribbing. I ended up, I think I cast on for the 3rd size in the pattern. I can't remember what size that is, but the 3rd one as you look at the stitch counts and things. And apart from the number of stitches I cast on and how many stitches I picked up under the sleeves, I ended up doing a lot of it differently. I got to about here, I think, from the increases and realized that I wanted to keep going. I'd compared it to some other jumpers and it wasn't nearly as deep in the arms yet or as wide in the body. So I kept going for a while. One of the things I did forget was that you cast on stitches under the arm. I think I would have gone slightly less if I'd remembered that information, but alas. And then I kept going in the body for too long and ended up having to rip back. And then I knit the body. I actually ended up putting the body on hold because I couldn't decide whether I'd gone too far or not. I wanted to do the sleeves first. And then I knit the sleeves 2 at a time, which is my first time doing that for sleeves. I didn't look up a tutorial because I've done it with socks and was fairly confident, but in retrospect I think some things would have been easier if I had looked it up and not figured it out as I went. But also I enjoy figuring things out as I go, so pros and cons. I think I've accidentally made this sleeve fractionally shorter than this one. I don't think it's noticeable, but I can feel it. So there's that, but I don't know where that happened. I think I did start each of the sleeve independently, so I may have just miscounted how many rows I'd done before I started doing them 2 at a time. I did decreases every 6 rows instead of the size that I was doing. How I decided that was essentially I knit some rows and then went, I should probably decrease here, and went off that. And then I did some extra decreases when I got to the ribbing to both get it a bit smaller and get to the correct stitch count to do 2x1 ribbing. Because 2x1 ribbing isn't as stretchy, it doesn't cinch in. I did size down my needles. Again, that was the look I was going for. I'm very happy with how that turned out. I used the Rook cast off method for the first time. I really enjoyed it, actually. I thought it was an interesting and definitely quicker than the Italian bind off. I don't think, if I'd wanted this to be a really neat going out and about sweater rather than my comfort sweater, I probably would have done an Italian bind off, because I think this does look a bit, I don't know if you can see that, but it does look a bit less neat. I don't know, it's not like uneven or anything, but it's not as smooth as an Italian bind off. Also, I wasn't doing a 1x1 ribbing, I was doing 2x1, so I don't know how to do Italian bind off for that. I'm sure someone's figured it out. I also did it along the bottom edge. I did at one point accidentally mess up and started doing the stitches the wrong way, and so it looks a bit funky over there. It's at the back at the corner and no one will notice, right? But yeah, that's my modified step-by-step sweater. I love this jumper. I don't want to take it off now, but it is a bit warm. Right, that's the finished objects. I told you this would be a long one, but I promise we'll get through it together. Or not, if you don't want to stick around. I won't be offended. I hope you enjoy whatever you're making. If you're making something, do let me know what it is. I'm just going to pick up the whips as they are on the pile. I believe I talked about this one in my last knitting podcast. I haven't made any progress. In fact, I've frogged it and restarted. These are this pattern, put on screen, from the 52 weeks of socks. And I started them doing just one at a time before I learned that I way prefer 2 at a time socks. And so I restarted them and got this far. These are, for me, I'm excited about them, but I've just been more excited about other projects at the moment. And I've got other socks on my needles. I might be planning to cast on some other socks on my needles, but these are a slightly heavier weight. So maybe when I feel like not doing a fingering weight project, as most of these are fingering weight projects, I'll come back to these. Then another pair of socks. These are the Turning Point socks, again from the 52 weeks of socks. I'm determined to finish a pattern from that book. These I am making for my husband. Initially, I was making them for his birthday, which has been and gone. I did not really anticipate fingering weight cable socks. I've even modified the pattern to be shorter because the original is quite long in the leg. I wanted to finish them quicker, but I'm only about halfway through the first chart before the heel turn, so quite a way to go. I am enjoying them. They're just a bit more of a mentally intensive one, and when I've got something slightly more exciting to knit, they get put to the side for a bit. The yarn I talked about in my last one. I got it in a yarn shop in Essex. It's Lang Jar Wool, and it comes with a little spool in the center. And someone commented on my last one, because I'd said that it was for darning and things afterwards, but someone commented saying that they thought actually it was to hold with, and I looked it up and it is to hold with on the bits that need strengthening, so the heel and potentially the toe. So I'm very excited to get to the heel and get to hold this with to strengthen it. I think it's a nylon or something more reinforced, but it is a smaller yarn. So as well as if they need darning in the future, which I would probably hold this and any leftover yarn with to do, yeah, I'll reinforce the heels with it, which is just really exciting. Do I put this back in now? Probably not. The other thing in this project bag that I will talk about real quick is this fun little multi-tool. I bought this in Loop in London, in Camden Passage in Islington. I got that wrong on my reel and people keep commenting about it despite changed it in the copy now. Anyway, this is a fun little multi-tool that I really enjoy using for cabling. It's a lot firmer and less slippery than a traditional cable needle. So I've been using this, I'm really enjoying it. I think I've also seen people talk about using it for picking up drop stitches and all sorts, because you can put the stitches on and then curl it up. I think it's just a fun little alternative cable needle for me, maybe a slightly expensive cable needle compared to how much I think you'd normally pay for one, but I also haven't lost it yet, which I usually lose cable needles very quickly. And then the final interesting thing in this project bag, and I will talk more about this when I get to acquisitions at the end of the video, but these were my first ChatKnit needles. Again, bought them in Loop because I wanted to try them out. When I made the green socks with the rowan yarn, I borrowed some metal needles and slightly fell in love with how smooth the knitting process was with them. I think especially on smaller objects. I don't notice it as much on larger needle sizes, but when it's smaller objects, it just glides. It's just smooth and lovely, and I really like it. And you can't step on them and break them as easily. And so I bought the size I needed for this to try them out. They are the Shorty Twists, red lace twists. I like them so much, I may have bought some more. Quick tea break. Remember to drink your water, kids, and adults, especially adults. This project holds a little bit of shame. It was the only kind of unplanned cast on during my cast on ban. Before I banned myself, I had two exceptions to the cast on ban. One was Will's socks for his birthday, and two was my own birthday fell within the period, so I wanted to be able to cast on something for my birthday. I didn't end up casting on something for my birthday, so this was kind of my birthday cast on. But in actuality, the reason I needed it was because I was about a week away, and all of the projects I was working on were quite intensive. Either they were large or they required a lot of attention, and I needed a mindless project to take to an event so that I could have my fiddle, basically. So I cast on a Sophie scarf. This is using the same yarn I used for my Daydreamer cardigan. It's a Sophie scarf. There's not a lot to say here. It's a great project for anything that I want the project for, but don't have anything that's just stockinette. So I am reserving that exclusively for those occasions, so I always have something. Oh, and a reminder, the yarn is Drops Nepal held with brushed alpaca silk in a red and Bordeaux, so it creates that sort of mild effect. This is my most recent cast on. There's a lot of background to this project. One of the plans I will talk about in a minute is the CatKnit pullover, which I talked about in my 25 things I want to make before I'm 25 video. I tried colour work for it and realised I needed to up my continental knitting skills. So I chose the smallest project on my queue, but as you might be able to see, it is fingering weight, so still a decent amount of stitches to get that muscle memory learnt. This is the My Favourite Things knitwear camisole number 9, and as you can see, I've done the front bit and I'm working on the back section to then be able to join in the round. I am not purling continentally, I'm only knitting continentally, because for the colour work projects I want to do, they're all in the round, I only need to know how to knit, and the purling slightly scares me, and I kind of wanted to baby steps into learning completely new techniques. I don't know what that's going to do to my tension. Technically, I didn't do a full gauge swatch for this. I did knit a swatch, but obviously I'm learning continental, so my gauge is going to change. It changed throughout the swatch. It'll probably change throughout this project. So the outcome will be the outcome. This is quite a fitted garment, ideally. So I went on the smaller side to hopefully allow for inconsistency where it will just stretch. But we'll see. The yarn I'm using for this is probably my favorite yarn at the moment. It is West Yorkshire Spinners Exquisite. I bought some of this for my CatKnit sweater in a cream colour from Beautiful Knitters in London, and it's expensive. It's £20. It was just under £20 per hank. It is it's so soft. I've seen some people talk about it pilling on the Ravelry page for it, but it's so soft that I would kind of expect that from it. It is 80% Falkland wool, 20% Marlborough silk, and yeah, it's so lovely to knit with. It's so lovely. It's such a lovely feel. I've knit with some other of it and blocked it, and it's just gorgeous. I just love it. So I'm very excited to have this top in it. I'm hoping it won't be too warm being wool, but it's a little top, so I think it'll probably be fine. It's fingering weight, it's very light fabric. I did only start this a couple of days ago, and it is coming together quicker than I was expecting, which is nice. I imagine once I get to all of the stitches on the body, it might be a bit slower, because at the moment I'm working on smaller sections. I'm really looking forward to this coming together and being able to wear it for the summer. I've finished a lot of jumpers recently, as you will have seen, and obviously it's now going into British summer. It's warm. Not wearing as many jumpers, so it would be nice to have something I can wear. That's it for my strict whips, the things that I've actually fully cast on. However, I'd like to talk about one that is in limbo, I guess, between not yet cast on and cast on, and that is my CatKnit pullover. I am making a whole project vlog on this, so in a billion years when I finish it, you'll be able to see that. I'm knitting the CatKnit pullover by Andrea Rangel. I've not seen many people's finished ones of these, apart from on Ravelry, but in terms of like content creators, I've not seen a huge amount of them, so I would like to see more. This is also the West Yorkshire Spinners Exquisite. I thought I was going to run out because when I first bought it, I was quite conservative with how much I bought because it's expensive. Then I had another look, oh, excuse my son going in and out, but then I had another look at the yardage recommendations in the pattern and decided I needed some more. And Wool Warehouse just happened to have it half off, which is why I bought some more for the camisole number 9 that I'm knitting. And I'm holding the Exquisite with some Earth Yarns Bon Mower, which is a lace weight super kid mohair silk mix, 60% super kid mohair. I've not heard of super, I don't know what that means. It is a really, really soft mohair. I can't explain to you how nice this feels to touch compared to literally every mohair I've ever touched. I'm not that irritated by mohair, but this is zero. It's just gorgeous, which for the price you would hope. I'm holding this double in 2 colours, which are Smoke and Dawn. I really love how they work up. I have done a swatch in these yarns. I did it in the round because it's in the round. I did all of the stitches. This is probably the most vigilant swatch I've ever done, and it was off gauge by quite a lot. I don't know whether it's my tension, the needles, the fact that I am doing colour work for the first time. I don't know what it is, but it was off. and so I'm kind of putting this to bed for a little bit, not for long, but for a little bit. This is so soft. I can't express to you how soft and nice this fabric is. But look how cute the little cats. So yeah, this is going on hold while I improve my skills a little bit and also work up the courage to frog this and reknit the swatch. I want this to be a perfect sweater, so I don't want to take any shortcuts. So it might take a bit longer, and I'm okay with that. Also, it's fingering weight. It's going to take a while, but one day I will have finished it and I will share it with you and we can revel in the glory of it. But yes, obviously inspired by my own little orange cat. As I said, to better my continental knitting, I've started the camisole number 9, but once I'm done with that, I also want to do a project to better my two-stranded colour work. Now, this is also an excuse to do this project. I've seen 5 or 6 people knitting these recently, and I was messaging Eleanor of Cozy Book Knits, and she was really persuading me I needed to cast these on. Not even that hard. I want to, but I've got a lot on my needles. Once I'm done with the camisole number 9, I am going to cast on the chicken socks. The chicken socks, they're not called the chicken, the herding hen socks. It's a sock set. I'm going to do the hens, not the chicks, by Stone Knits. I am just so excited about these socks. I think they'll be the perfect colour work socks to do to improve my colour work. I'm slightly worried about socks and colour work tension and the fact that I've not quite got that down, but we'll cross that hurdle when we get to it. I am going to be knitting these in 2 balls of yarn that I got from Loop. The first one is for the chickens. I'm going to be using this rainbow yarn. I love these Salva Ball crazy. If you've not seen one of these before, I feel like I see them in every yarn shop I go into. I think they just look so cool, and I actually got this. I actually initially wanted this to just have on a shelf and look pretty, but when I realized I could do the chickens on the hen socks, I realized it would look so cool and I had to do it. And this Lang Jawul, which is the same as I'm making my husband's socks out of, but in this red, which I think will just look so good with this yarn. I will have to find some scraps to do the features, like the beaks and things, but I'll figure that out when I get to it. And I'm hoping between this and this will be enough yarn. Funny story, this was an accidental purchase in Loop. I think I just got too excited and overwhelmed. I picked this up at some point and just never put it down, and I did not realize until I got home and unpacked that I had also bought this yarn. So no regrets. It was a happy accident and it's worked out beautifully. Then finally, I just want to quickly talk about a acquisition. Obviously I've spoken about a lot of the wool that I've got, and I'm not going to go into any more detail about those, but when casting on the CatKnit sweater, I realized I did not have the needle sizes needed for the project. I have largely worked in DK or up. My interchangeable set, which I love, they're Knit Pro Ginger interchangeable needles. I love them. They only go down to a 3 mil. And I think I had to buy those. I think the smallest it came with was 3.5. I used that fact to justify a purchase I was thinking about anyway, and that was some Chalgu needles. I've heard lots of good things, and honestly, I thought for that price, I can't justify it. And then I bought the ones that I'm knitting wool socks on, and I love using them, so I bought some more. Specifically, I bought these with the mentality that I will largely be knitting socks on this size, so I wanted short ones. I also don't mind using the longer size of these. Actually, I don't find too short. I think they're just fine on my fingers. The shorter ones, I think I should probably only really use when the circumference is so small that it calls for it, because they do hurt your hands a little bit more. Or your hands tire quicker is probably the best way to see it. These were an investment, but I'm hoping to make many projects to come on them. I also bought, because that only comes with the shorter size circumference, I also bought the mini size of the twist cables in all the sizes so that I had them and can do everything I need to. I think last time I bought new needles was quite some time ago. I feel like I've done well to only need those for a while, but now it was time for an upgrade. I think that is everything. Whew. We've gotten to the end. Thank you for sticking around. Obviously a lot to be working on here, a lot of fingering weight, so I don't know how much progress. The likelihood is that I will cast something on that's a bit chunkier in the meantime as well. A break from the tiny needles and tiny yarn. Follow along if you want to see all of these things finished, maybe. Will I finish all of them? I'm feeling fairly good recently about my finish rate to abandonment rate, though I do still have a lot of longer term abandoned whips in my drawers. But actually most of them are crochet and sewing, so I think I'm just in my knitting era, and that's okay. I do have a rule that I'm only allowed to cast on a project once I've cast off two, which so far I've not stuck to, but I am determined to stick to, and I will check in next time and hold myself accountable with you guys as to whether I have stuck to that. Follow me on TikTok and Instagram if you want to see more about these objects and what I'm knitting. And I'll be back with another one of these, hopefully in a shorter period of time, and as it's been since the last one. But yeah, speak soon. Bye. I just spotted my cat out the window. He's staring at me. Sitting in some sunshine, aren't you, boy?